So, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Progressive War Room. And I am here with Imani Oakley, who is a New Jersey native and the Dean of Movement School. She has been active in New Jersey politics for many years now. And I just want to introduce you to her. We're going to talk strategy. I told her to, really dig deep into the mechanics of organizing, into strategy. Don't be shy about getting into the nitty gritty of stuff, because we here are political strategy nerds, and that's what we're here to talk about. Say hello to the people, Imani.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
All right.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Yes, no problem. I'm so happy you're here, and thanks for joining. So the first question, let's get right into it. Movement School. First, tell me about yourself, and then tell me about Movement School.
Sure. So, like you said, my name is Imani Oakley. I'm a native of New Jersey, and I am the Dean of Movement Building at Movement School. And the idea behind Movement School was that, in the past, campaigns have been really dominated as far as campaign staff by people who are upper class, people who are white, and people who typically are just kind of parachuted in to like urban neighborhoods and lower socioeconomic neighborhoods to run campaigns in these places, knowing really not anything at all about the community, right? And so the wonderful, amazing founders of Movement School, my bosses, Gabe Tobias and Alona DeVerge, both came up with this idea of Movement School, where they teach folks from marginalized backgrounds to run campaigns. And they teach campaign finance skills, comm skills, digital, as well as field. And it's all for free, right? Because, one of the things that I think people don't realize when it comes to campaigning, there are other classes that teach folks how to run campaigns, but they are so expensive. Like I'm talking about like $200 for like 2 hours, right? Like
Wow.
things that your average working class person would not be able to afford. And therefore they wouldn't be able to afford to get the skills to run progressive campaigns wherever they are. So the concept of Movement School is to cut all of that out and bring high level skills to people who are in marginalized areas, working class folks, people who otherwise would not have access to these campaign skills, and teach them and get them taught by experts in the field. Like we've collaborated with Tiffany Caban. We've collaborated with
Nice.
people from Bernie Sanders' world. We've
Nice.
collaborated with campaign staffers from Elizabeth Warren's world. Like really, really top level folks coming in and teaching people how to run campaigns, and it's all for free. So
Wow.
it's really an excellent program. I don't really know of many other programs like it. And it's just amazing. And even when before I became the dean of movement building, I was actually a campaigns fellow, which I know we're gonna get a little bit more
Mhm.
into later. But
Mhm.
I was a campaigns fellow, and that got me into the world, and it was
Mhm.
an excellent experience. Like I had worked both on the federal level in politics and on the state side level in politics up until that point, and I knew a little bit about campaigns. But when I became a campaign fellow, like my knowledge was really much more expanded. So
Nice.
we've got a bunch of programming coming up soon, and that's kind of movement school in a nutshell.
Nice. Oh, that sounds awesome. So let me ask you this question. I'm just a regular guy off the street. Well, now with COVID, no, I'm not on the street. I'm at home. I want to take a class, or I want to learn. What should I do?
Yeah, so definitely follow us on all of our social media at MVMT School. And the reason to do that is because that's the best place to keep up with when we come out with new programming. So when we come out with new programming, whether that be a workshop or a boot camp or a full-blown program, you can definitely check out our socials and see on there what we're about to come up with and how to register, how to apply, et cetera, et
Nice.
cetera. Now, sometimes there are different skill levels that we ask for folks to have depending on the
Mhm.
program. For
Okay.
example, this past maybe like 5 months, we did the campus program, right?
Okay.
And the purpose of the campus program was to have folks who were already working on campaigns and to teach them how to run campaigns during this time of COVID, right? Because pretty much the campaign landscape shifted almost completely because
Totally.
everything was online, like field really shifted because we couldn't go
Mm.
outside, right? And so this past programming, we asked folks to apply who were already working on a campaign because we really wanted to get them those skills really quickly, given everything that was going on in the country.
Mm.
But campaign fellows is a little bit different because those are more folks who are trying to get into the space a little more and maybe have, worked a little bit on a campaign, but not at such like high levels, or not,
Mm.
maybe they only worked on one campaign. So that's a little bit more for folks with a little bit less experience. And we actually have some programming that's going to be announced next week that
Nice.
spans even more experience levels. So everybody, again, follow our socials at MVMT School on IG, Twitter, and Facebook. And you can, be the first to know about all those programs when they drop, for sure.
Wow, that's awesome. So you said you were training people who were volunteers, or were they like people on high level of certain staff, like they were actually like the executive, not executive position, but like maybe a press conference, a press secretary or something. They would come to one of your classes.
So these were full-time staff. So they didn't necessarily
Wow.
have to
Okay.
be like senior staff on a campaign,
Okay.
but they had to be on a campaign as a
Mhm.
staff member.
Okay. Okay.
And the requirement to be paid wasn't really there for us because, again, like this is progressive campaigns. A lot of it
Yeah.
is grassroots.
Totally.
Progressives typically have a hard time fundraising, right? Which is why we teach so much of our finance classes. So
Mhm.
some positions on progressive campaigns may not be paid. There may be people who are technically staff on
Yes.
them, but they're doing it because of the mission and they believe in the candidate. So that's not really so much of a hard requirement for us,
Mm-mm.
but it was more of a requirement that they actually be staff and not say like a super volunteer or something.
Okay. Got
So
you.
that was the requirement this past
Got you.
campus.
Got you. Okay, so let me ask you about the certificate courses. I saw that on the website. Tell me about that.
Sure. So the certificates, again, they're in the general field areas of campaign communications, campaign finance, how to run field for campaigns, as well as how to run digital for campaigns. And so
Hmm.
typically our comms courses focus on how to communicate your progressive message, right? Like,
Hmm.
how do you talk to somebody who really maybe isn't sold on your candidate? Maybe somebody who goes back and forth between, voting for candidates that are more progressive or less progressive. How do you get these people on your side? But also at the same time, while you get them on your side, how do you not kind of hedge your punches with regards to the importance of an issue? Right?
Hmm.
Because,
Hmm.
a lot of time you'll hear messaging that's kind of just like, oh, well, I'm for everything, or like, I'm not
Yeah.
this extreme or that extreme. I'm just like this middle person. And like,
Yeah.
that doesn't really that
Yeah.
doesn't really touch hearts, right? That doesn't really touch the hearts and the minds and the spirits of voters to want to mobilize and come out and vote
Absolutely.
for your
Mhm.
candidate. So we
Absolutely.
teach people in the comms aspect, how to really frame their message and pitch their message in a way that's both like, bold and
Yeah.
really doesn't shy away from the issue, but also that fully connects with people that we're trying to connect with.
Mm. Can you throw me an
And then the
example
other
of
one,
that?
oh, go ahead.
Can you throw me an example of you like forming a statement to say to somebody? Like, just give me an example of what you just said. I will, if you have one available.
Sure, I have to think about it. So,
Yeah.
like, instead of saying something like, I'm not for a Green New Deal, I believe in climate change, but like, I'm not for a Green New Deal, like something like that,
Yeah.
right? That's
Yeah.
not telling anyone anything really, right? You're just telling
Exactly.
them that, like, okay, you believe in science, but then what? Like, what's your plan, right?
Totally.
So, I guess a good campaign messaging would be like, you know, I am pro Green New Deal, and you know why I'm pro Green New Deal? Because I'm pro green jobs. I'm
Mm.
pro children not having to live with asthma in urban areas. I'm
Mm.
pro people being able to live past a decade because that's really all we have left, right?
Hmm.
These are the things I'm for. And people try to demonize Green New Deal. But the fact of the matter is we need this. We need this program if we are going to stop kids from having asthma. We need this program if we are going to stop having these fires span over half the country, right? These are the things that we need, that everyday people need. And on top of that, a Green New Deal comes with green new jobs. You know, a lot of people are afraid that their coal jobs or any other job that isn't green is going to go away when the Green New Deal comes and they won't have any income. But guess what? We can replace those jobs with better paying union green jobs. And that's what we want. So like something like that. I mean, that was like off the cuff, but you know, something where you're not shying away from what the issue is, but you're really leaning into it and explaining to people why it matters to their life and, you know, their kitchen table issues, essentially.
Look at Imani out here teaching and preaching this good stuff that you guys getting. I hope you guys taking notes on this messaging. All right, so I see, so that's definitely messaging. I see another course here is digital ads, mastering call times. Like, is that something that you can elaborate on? I'm here looking at the website.
Yeah, so yeah, absolutely. So so mastering call time, whenever you're a candidate that runs for office, you have to do this thing called call time, which is essentially when you pick up the phone, you have a number, it could be a personal friend, or it could be somebody in a network you tap into, and you call them and you say, hey, I'm a progressive candidate and I'm running for office. This is what I stand for. Will you please give me $500, right, towards my campaign? And this is typically pretty daunting for folks who grew up without, you know, a network that has a lot of money, or if they themselves grew up without a lot of money, right? Because, you know, asking for money is really kind of taboo in a lot of ways in our culture. And it's almost outside of the campaign world. It's viewed like as begging or like being a freeloader or like whatever. But the fact of the matter is that call time is essential to campaigns, like essential. You cannot, if your candidate doesn't do call time, like you can't, your candidate probably isn't going to raise enough to win, right? And so we wanted to teach folks a way and that class was taught by like the amazing Evan Barker, and like it was awesome. But to teach folks how to go about doing this in a way that's professional and in a way that will get them results as far as bringing in money to their campaign. So that's the campaign, the call time course.
Awesome.
And then the digital course is about how to essentially get your message out via these online platforms. So like, how are you utilizing the Facebook algorithm, the Twitter algorithm, all these algorithms and things that are digital in scope to get your message out and the idea of your campaign out there to people who are online, and communicating with folks that way. So that's what that course was all about.
Awesome.
And they were, again, excellent folks taught those. We had people from, like, at the time, Working Families teaching on that. We had people from AOC's world, campaign world, teaching the digital course. It was really, really amazing.
Yeah, speaking of AOC, I definitely remember that, you know, when the election just finished happening, and of course there's that infamous phone call where they were basically trying to blame progressives and defund the police, and AOC came out and said, you know what, all the progressives actually won their races, and also I was trying to offer my help as well as other digital, you know, tools that could be used on the races of people like Donna Shalala, who lost in Florida. And so this is something that they probably should have came to your school and send their staffers to you guys and have you guys teach them about, you know, digital advertisement. Like you probably could have helped them out, correct?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And actually, we just had a course about criminal legal reform that featured Tiffany Caban. And, you know, part of that was also about how to message issues of abolition and defund the police and how to message those properly for your campaign. So they should have definitely came to us if they were having a problem with messaging for defund the police, because we could have really helped them in that area.
Yeah. Can we speak on that a little bit? I see that's another thing here. Electoral, organizing for criminal legal reform. And yeah, I see Tiffany Caban and Devi Sundaram. I don't definitely
Yeah,
butchered
Divya
that name.
Sandra. Yep.
Okay, there you go. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, sure. So it was a course that, because, at the time we developed the course, it was during the summer when all of the uprisings happened, like
Mm-hmm.
in Minneapolis and New York and Portland, like all across the country, really,
Mm-hmm.
with regards to first George Floyd and then, a bunch of other, like Breonna Taylor and unfortunately other Black people who were murdered by police. And so we knew that this was obviously going to be something that was going to be relevant to campaigns that were running at the time. And so our thought was, okay, we need to have a course that covers this and teaches folks how to deal with this on their campaigns, because it's going to come up, right? The issue, like, you can't avoid it. It's all across the
Yeah,
country.
totally. Yeah.
I even had colleagues who do work in Florida calling me up saying, like, yeah, like, what's kind of the time span? What's the deal with this? How long are our campaigns going to have to like talk about this, et cetera, et cetera. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we knew it was going to come up, right?
Yeah.
And our thinking in the course was, we need to teach folks how to really organize and talk to voters and do a field plan as well as a comms plan around this issue of police abolition and defunding the police and different issues around police violence. And so, we contacted Tiffany and Divya, and they taught the course. It was amazing. Like, it was, for such a heavy subject, they did a great job of making the course fun and engaging.
Nice.
And I learned so much in that course. The participants really gave great feedback as far as what they took away from that course, and it was really, really needed for the time, certainly. But I definitely think moving forward, it's something that's going to be really, really important for campaigns to tap into and learn how to talk about these issues in a way that resonates with voters.
Totally.
And again, that doesn't shy away from the issue, but that also brings the issue in a lens that's relatable to people that they're talking to.
Awesome. And definitely for the audience, Tiffany Caban ran in New York City, I believe for like a district attorney general. She came very, very
Yeah.
close. A DA, yeah, very, very close to winning. And I'm glad to see that she's still active. And I believe she's running again for the state assembly, I think, or locally, definitely locally. So I'm looking
City
for
council.
city council. There we go. I'm looking forward to seeing her progress and be successful. She's definitely a strong progressive, and definitely look her up and support her. So the next thing on the certificate here is voting shouldn't be this hard, an intro to voter protection. Tell me about that.
hmm Yeah, so that course was about, like, listen, at the time, and I think probably all the time when we're dealing with conservatives, right?
Hmm.
One of our main concerns is voter protection. Are people being allowed to fully exercise their right to vote, or are they being intimidated? Are in some way they being shut down from being able to vote? A couple of years ago, voter ID was like really, the talk of the town, and people having issues with that. So
Hmm.
that course was all about how to do voter protection and to
Hmm.
make sure that all folks were allowed to vote and were able to exercise their right to vote, weren't disenfranchised
Hmm.
in any sense during these campaigns.
Wow. Yeah, yeah, that's definitely powerful. I remember, I think Letitia James, I remember a clip that I clipped out and put up on Case Study QB. There was like a militia, I think upstate, like near Albany up there, that they had a militia was threatening to be in front of a voter place, and she was definitely all over it. So that's definitely important to know how to kind of combat that kind of intimidation and who to contact. So definitely glad to see there's a course about that. So the next course on here that I see is effective, compassionate leadership. Tell me a little bit about that, or a lot about that. It's up to you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
mhm. Yeah, so it's so that course is about, if you are a senior staffer on
Mhm.
campaigns, right? If you're a senior staffer or in an otherwise senior or director position on campaign staff, that course taught you both how to deal with a team
Mhm.
in ways that are respectful and, again, compassionate, but also in ways that are real, right? Because the fact of the matter is, it is a campaign, and there is a race to win. So that course delved into, what are the proper ways to treat your staff? What are the proper ways to engage your staff? What are the proper ways to make sure that your staff is really getting the work done that they need to be done, but in ways that reflect our values as progressives, right?
Okay.
Because campaign life can be kind of rough.
Yeah.
It can be rough not only because of the low pay or just like the long hours, but also because it's a high stress type of environment. It's a high stress environment, and also at times also unprofessional isn't the word I'm looking for, but it's very, very friendly, like a very just kind of lax kind of atmosphere.
Gotcha.
And so with that, you can there are sometimes boundaries that can get blurred, or boundaries aren't set properly. And we want to make sure that we're teaching folks how to do that in a way that, again, speaks to our values as progressives.
Gotcha.
And the way we care about workers in every other aspect, we care about workers on campaigns as well. So that course was delving into, if you have a senior position, how do you deal with staff in a way that's appropriate, but also a way that really, brings out the best in their work ethic, so that you can actually win your race.
Got you. Okay, and the last course here that I'm going to talk about, and then we're going to move on to other questions, is winning a Green New Deal. Tell me a little bit about that, or a lot about that course.
Yeah, so that course, it's all in the title for that one, actually. That one is about how to win a Green New Deal on your campaign, like how to go around talking about a Green New Deal, how to engage with voters on the idea of a Green New Deal, and things of that nature. That one's pretty self-explanatory, But
definitely.
yeah, again, this is something that, because so many people on their campaigns would do things like, oh, I believe in climate change, but I'm not for a Green New Deal. I'm not one of those. We figured it's a good time to teach people how to talk about it, so they could be very out there and bold on the fact that they actually do support a Green New Deal.
Oh, cool. So, tell me a little bit about the Movement School Fellows. Like on the website, I see that you have a lot of fellows there, and what it takes to join, to be a fellow, and some more information about that.
Yeah, so the Campaign Fellows program is a little bit different. It's structured a little bit different from campus programming. So campus programming gives you like all these courses we just went through. You'll take a course or a few courses. It'll focus just on that, but it'll give, examples that happen in campaigns all over the country. In Campaign Fellows, what we do is we take people who apply and who get in. We take them, put them into small teams, and then we give them a campaign scenario. So we make up an entire candidate for them, right?
Oh, wow.
We pick a district somewhere in the country. We make up this fake profile for a candidate. And then we tell them, okay, now run a campaign for this candidate. And each person in a team has chosen to be on a different track. So again, we focus on comms, campaign finance, field, and digital. Gotcha. So, when folks are in their teams, each person on the team has chosen a track to be on. And throughout this simulation, they work on the candidate, the fake candidate's campaign through the lens of their given track. And then basically throughout the 6 weeks of the program, they both learn skills on how to, up their skills in these various areas, and then they apply it to different scenarios that we give them with their fake candidate. We even have a thing called wild cards, which is designed to simulate, like on campaigns, let's say, like, a random hit piece came out about your candidate. What are you going to do about it? And, we throw that at the Campaign Fellows and tell them to come up with a campaign plan around that. So it's a really fun program. Like I said, I went through that program before I was the Dean of Movement Building at Movement School. And it's really, really interesting because you really simulate, what it would be like to run this fake candidate. And then at the end, you find out whether your candidate won or not. And it's a fun time, but you learn a lot of skills through that.
Wow, that's very interesting. How do you find out if your candidate won or not? Is it like random, or like they have to meet certain requirements as they go through the process and then they would win? How does that work? I'm just curious.
So this is my first time as a dean doing this program. Last time
Okay.
around, I was a fellow.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I actually have to figure that out.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
But at the end, suffice it to say, we do let folks know whether they won or not. So I mean,
Okay.
for those who are a little bit competitive in spirit, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
something for them to look forward to.
That's so cool. I really like that idea, and so I'm wondering the intent for these fellows, of course, to join a campaign, a progressive campaign, and help them out. Now, is it for them to be super volunteers, or the intent is to really find out their strength so that you can say, okay, you deserve to be, or not you deserve, but it seems like your passion or your talents is in the press area. It seems like your talent is in the organizing, the super volunteers or the volunteers area. Like a fellow would come into this and kind of find where they belong in a campaign. Is that the intent?
So we allow them to tell us where they belong, right? So we
Okay.
don't necessarily, just like look at a person and say, you know what, you would be like really good for field, right?
Mm-mm.
When they apply to what track they're
Gotcha.
interested in learning on, and the goal at the end is to be able to get them hired on campaigns, right?
Okay.
It's for them to have paid
Ah,
positions, or to go
gotcha.
on and be consultants, or
Mm-hmm.
to go on to work for organizations that do campaign work and have like
Mm-hmm.
real leadership roles in those positions. So the goal at the end is to be able to equip people with the skills that they can go and be paid
Mm-hmm.
for these campaigns. Because
Okay.
again, typically people from the marginalized backgrounds that we're trying to reach, that we're trying to teach these skills to, are oftentimes given volunteer positions and not paid. While like, people from non-marginalized backgrounds and otherwise privileged backgrounds, our consultants come in for 30 minutes and get paid, six figures to say something that's like, you probably could have just engaged with a community member and found that out. You didn't have to
Yeah.
pay like,
Yeah.
half your
Yeah.
call time, half your
Yes.
call time raisings just to get that.
Yeah.
But
Totally.
our goal is to make sure that folks who come through our program come out with the skills to be fully employed in this field area, for sure.
Awesome. Awesome. So I see on the website you also have a title up here that says NYC. So it seems like you guys have a lot of activism in NYC. It says reclaim and talk about NYCHA. Can you tell me a little bit about your activism specifically in NYC with Movement School?
Yeah, so Alona is actually the director over that program. She
Okay.
leans in a little bit more to that, but
Okay.
essentially it's talking about the public housing system in New York City,
Mm.
and how if we incorporated a Green New Deal for housing with also the idea of giving people good, actually like not holes in the walls, not leaks in the ceiling, really good livable housing,
Hmm.
and marry those two things, that we could both combat climate change while also giving people really sound homes and places to live, who folks who are who don't have as much income to say live buy a brownstone, or like live in a house, or what have you. So that's what that program focuses on. And then I can't get into it right now, but if people follow our socials, again, at NVMT School on IG, Twitter, and Facebook, we have some really exciting news coming up for New York this week, this upcoming week. So big announcement Friday. I can't get into it right now, but NYC is going to be very interested in what comes up in our big announcement this Friday. So if you're watching, definitely follow our socials, and you'll be clued in when that happens.
Nice. I'm looking out for that as well, and I will retweet that when I see it. So that sounds exciting. Okay, okay. So I saw that Movement School is a sister organization to Justice Democrat. Tell us about that relationship that you have, and how they help out.
Yeah, for sure. So, we are the sister organization to Justice Democrats. And the way we collab there is that a lot of our fellows, once they graduate, or people who have participated in campus, once they graduate, we do our best to try and link them with any. Oh, is there feedback? Do you hear that? Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, no, you're good. Sorry
All right,
about
went
that.
away.
Yeah.
But
Hmm. Go ahead.
yeah, no, it's all good.
Hmm.
So we try to link people who go through our programs
Hmm.
with campaigns that Justice Democrats are running. So, a fellow that really, did particularly well and worked really hard, or just simply applies and comes to us and is like, hey, I want to
Yeah.
work on this JD campaign. That's folks we try to to plug in into the JD campaign world. And we've
Hmm.
had fellows who've worked on Cory Bush's campaign, AOC's campaign, Jessica Cisneros' campaign. So we really just try to plug folks in once they come through our programming into the JD campaign world, so they can, hit the ground running on working on these progressive campaigns, and again, getting paid to do so. So that's really
Awesome.
the relationship there, and so far it's worked out really well.
Oh wow, that's awesome. Okay, so I want to ask you a little bit about some New Jersey politics stuff. If you live in New Jersey, and I mean in me, like from I'm asking this for selfish reasons, what's the best sources that you use for local news, for local politics, politics in New Jersey?
Mhm. Yeah, so it's difficult because
Mm-hmm.
New Jersey has a particular landscape where the news sources aren't as strong stateside as it
Mm-hmm.
maybe is in other places. It's not really like a robust field, especially for progressives, to be honest. But I would say if you want to just be abreast of what's going on generally, without you know, really a progressive tint to it. Insider NJ is pretty good as far as letting you know who's doing what, when, and where.
Okay.
There's also Politico. Like Politico does a decent job of saying what's happening where, who's doing what, etc. There's this awesome show. I don't know who the host is, but the show is called Upfront Now. It's a video podcast. I never met the host, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
heard it's a really great lefty show
Okay.
for progressive. So people can tune into that as well. So those would be, I would say, kind of like the news sources. But again, it's a little bit difficult because New Jersey is a little bit sparse when it comes to the stateside news sources, especially progressive ones.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Since we're throwing out shows, I want to ask you what organizations in New Jersey that you like.
Yeah. Okay, so there's this awesome organization called Progressive Democrats of New Jersey. They
Yes.
are really pushing the bar on everything New Jersey, and as well as everything progressivism. They are a really bold group of folks who support all the things that we kind of talked about today. We support, defund the police, support a Green New Deal, support Medicare for all, and are really pushing to change New Jersey's landscape so that our elected officials can reflect the level of progressivism of their voters. Because right now, that's not the case.
Awesome. Awesome. So anybody in New Jersey, definitely check that organization out. All right. I want to ask you, do you think the word progressive is getting watered down with, James Clyburn has recently said he's a progressive. Hillary famously says she's a progressive that gets things done. What do you think about that?
So, I mean, to be honest, I think that people know what folks mean when we say progressive.
Mm,
I would not say that it's getting watered down, but I would say that folks who understand that progressivism is really what voters want right now
mm,
are really doing their best to try and manipulate that term in their favor.
okay.
I don't think the term has gotten exactly watered down yet, because I think when people say that and their values don't match, it's
Yeah, yeah,
usually pretty obvious.
yeah.
It's obvious, I think, to many voters and people, who look at these folks, even if they, under the times, right, hold their nose and vote for somebody because they don't want to vote for a Republican or somebody more conservative. They'll still
Yeah.
admit to themselves, like, okay, this person's not a progressive, but they're
Okay.
not this conservative either.
Mm,
So I think that the word itself still holds kind of a gold standard and people know what it means. But at the same time, folks who definitely aren't progressive, who understand that that's actually what voters want in their candidates, are really trying their hardest to manipulate the term for their own selfish gain, for sure. That's definitely
yeah.
happening.
I know recently, even Jamal Bowman, after he was mysteriously cut off from CNN, they brought him back on. and he was doing an interview with them, and they said, you know, he talked about Rahm Emanuel, and they said, but Rahm Emanuel would consider himself a progressive, but Jamal Bowman had to say, well, a progressive wouldn't, you know, do all the things that Rahm Emanuel did, close down schools, you know, throw black brutality under the, you know, the rug, sweeping underneath the rug, and all these. He really had an excellent answer to the host saying that Rahm Emanuel would consider himself a progressive. So I hear what you're saying to a certain extent. Me personally, I think it's an interesting scenario that we have right now. You know, progressive is the in thing in certain areas, in certain places. Progressive is the popular thing to be, and it seems like, you know, there's certain establishment people trying to co-opt that word. So I'm definitely in a debate with one of my political junkies on our show, where we go back and forth on whether we should adopt democratic socialism term more or not. So what do you think about that, about the term democratic socialism or socialist? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so honestly, I think it depends on your race. I think it depends on, every campaign has to figure out how to do their messaging in a way that reaches their voters, right?
Nice.
So in certain districts, like if it's like a deep blue district,
Mm-hmm.
Democratic Socialist may be like the thing, like, oh, thank God we have a Democratic Socialist running, right?
Mm-hmm.
In other districts that might not be as blue, progressive may be more so of the term to use to really reach people. So I think like each campaign has to look at their strategy and lean into it, and figure out what's the best way to really put their candidate, what light to put their candidate in that will most resonate with the voters they're trying to reach in their district. And a perfect way that you can learn to do that is to come and take some movement school courses, come be a fellow. That is what we specialize in. So that's what I would say. You know, it really just depends on the district and the campaign strategy, and even the candidate themselves, right? Like, what does that candidate want? If your candidate got up there and called themselves a democratic socialist, but, you know, nothing about their background really spoke to that, or they just weren't comfortable with like what that means, or really using that term, you know, is that something that would come off as unnatural when they talk about it on their campaign, and therefore hurt them because people are kind of like, oh, you're faking the funk here, right? So each campaign really needs to figure out what the best wording and the best light to paint their candidate in is, but also do it in a way that does not hold punches with regards to issues that are really important to everyday voters.
Nice. We have a comment in the chat. I want to throw this question at you from Alan Ambrister. He said, how do you deal with voters who say it's too expensive to create those kind of beneficial programs? So I asked him what beneficial programs exactly, because I don't know if you remember exactly what he's talking about, but do you know what he's talking about, the beneficial programs? Yeah, I wasn't. Hey, Alan, let us know.
No,
Yeah,
I
Alan.
mean, I guess what is. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was telling Alan, if you're still there, let us know what beneficial programs. Oh, Medicare for all. Okay, he just put Medicare for all. So how do you deal with voters who say it's too expensive to create a program like Medicare for all? Okay, yeah, obviously, you know, the famous, how do you pay for it? You know, that we always get from CNN and MSNBC and everywhere. How do you pay for these programs? Go ahead.
Well, I would say there's a few things that you talk about when it comes to how to pay for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
One, you can talk to them about how much money we spend on things that are just wasteful, right? How much we give to corporations, how much of that money could actually go to Medicare for all as opposed to going to bail out these corporations, right? Talk about how much money we spend on nukes when we out nuke everybody with regards to how many we have by thousands of units. Like, and that's the entire world, right? It's not just like one or two people, like we out nuke as far as units, the entire world. So you can talk to them about how much wasteful spending we actually do, which if we cut down on, we could put towards paying for Medicare for all. So that's one. Then you can also talk to them about how actually their Medicare costs and their healthcare costs overall will go down significantly once we have Medicare for all. So
Gotcha.
while, it may be an expensive program nationally, their personal costs and the amount of money that they bring into their household to take care of themselves and to take care of their family is actually going to go down significantly because they won't have to pay all of these outrageous insurance
Mm,
fees and bills and monthly payments, right?
gotcha.
So I would say that's how you relate to them. First, talk about how much we spend on things that actually don't help us at all.
Hmm.
And then talk to them about how them personal with their personal wallet and their personal bank accounts, how something like Medicare for All will actually lessen their costs and how much they're putting out and how much money is coming out of their household to participate in a program like Medicare for All.
Awesome, awesome. That brings me to a question, another question. So, do you have any courses for people who are the candidate themselves? Like, because that just made me think of if you have a course, like for example, for if you go on CNN or if you go on MSNBC and how to do the messaging, how to prepare for, bringing the message down into 10-second, 30-second sound bites. I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, so we usually, all of our programming is really geared towards people who want to be staff. But
Okay.
with that being said, we have had people participate in our programming who were running for office at the same time. So
Mhm.
even if you decide to run for office at a later date, or if you're running for office at the same time you're taking the courses, all of our skills are transferable. So you'll learn, how to best
Mhm.
utilize these tools as a candidate as well as a staff.
Gotcha, gotcha. Oh, that's awesome. I'm gonna throw this last question or this last statement from Alan in the chat, and then we're going to come to a conclusion. He said, "I got into this discussion with a person yesterday, and he's talking about the how do you pay for it. He couldn't understand if we had these kind of problems. Why are we the richest country, and why people travel to come here?" You want to respond to that?
Mhm. Yeah. So, I mean,
Mm.
I think a great way to engage with that person is to one, like, don't shy away from the conversation. It's excellent that you're actually talking to this person and trying to get them to understand the issue. So, definitely keep doing that. But
Hmm.
I think it's also, you have to pose to them the question, we're the richest country for who,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
'Cause it's not for
Yeah.
everybody. It's
Yeah.
certainly not for everybody. It's
Absolutely.
not for the 99% of us, right? Where's
Hmm.
that money going? Who is benefiting from all of those riches? Because it's not the
Exactly.
average person. It's not. And I would,
Totally.
pose questions to them like that to
Hmm.
really get them to think about um, this country and the way things are going, and even pose to them like, yeah, listen, if we're the richest country in the world, then we should have no problem paying for this, right?
Yeah.
Like if
Yeah.
your argument is, we're so bad off, then why are we so rich? Well, if we're so rich, we
Yeah.
should probably pay for it, right? So
Totally.
that's a way to, continue engaging with these folks. But Alan, thank you so much for continuing to talk to people about this issue, and
Yeah.
I'm sure you talk to them about, more issues than just this, because that's really what we have to make sure that we do. We have to make sure that we are engaging folks and really presenting the arguments for these policy initiatives in ways that are relatable to people and their everyday lives. So thank you for that, Alan, for sure.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. I what comes to my mind is how Donald Trump, when he got COVID-19, he had literally, it was like 10 or 11 different doctors. He was had the best, care, and round the clock they were checking, making sure that he was good. And for somebody in his health, like, we could look at him and see that he was prime in that vital state that he would have been or probably a goner if he was any other person, a regular person on the street without any health care. So you look at, that's one extreme. The president of the United States, most powerful, one of the richest people in the country, who can have 11 doctors around the clock, versus a homeless person on the street. Where do they go if they have COVID? That's something, the
Mhm.
extremes of this country, what we have, versus if you're in Canada or if you're in any other place that has socialist medicine or a universal medicine, that they can just literally walk into a place and get some kind of treatment and then walk out, you know? So
Mhm.
thank you so much,
Yeah.
Alan, for those questions and making this a little bit more interesting. And Imani Oakley, the Dean of Movement School. Thank you so much for coming on the Progressive War Room. I'm looking forward to having you again. We're going to continue talking progressive strategy, and we're going to dig deep into some more questions. And thank you so much for coming, everyone in the chat, everyone who watched this. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and I appreciate that. And continue, follow Movement School. Imani, give them those hashtags and where to follow Movement School again, and also let them know about the upcoming things, especially that Friday event, one more time.
Yeah, definitely. And, first, before I even do that, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's great that we have shows like this so we can really push the progressive movement forward, push the progressive message forward. So thank you for having me. And if folks want to continue to stay up with Movement School, you can follow us on IG, on Twitter, on Facebook. On Facebook, just type in Movement School and we should come up. If you are on Twitter or IG, our handles are at MVMT School. So that's Movement School, but it's condensed, MVMT School. And you can, we have some really exciting news coming up this upcoming week. So be sure to follow before, next Friday, so you can be abreast of that, and definitely stay in touch and apply and register. And we have live programming, watch that, and just come into our Movement School world and kick it with us.
Awesome. That's great. Claire, I want to give you a shout out also in the chat. So once again, thank you, Imani Oakley, for coming. Everyone out there, peace and love.